Hey, what's good, everybody? It's Jordan Pickleball coming at you again with another pickleball paddle review. I'm very excited for this one. We teased it a little bit in the last video, but we're going to be reviewing a paddle that's been very controversial over the last couple of months. I know I'm a little behind on actually getting the paddle, but we're going to be talking about the Gearbox, specifically the Gearbox Pro Power Elongated. That's the one that I was able to get my hands on. And the first thing we got to mention with this paddle is it's a very controversial paddle for a couple of reasons. There's questions about if it's broken or not. There's questions on if it's going to be banned or not. And a lot of people online I saw had issues with quality. So I'm only going to be speaking into the paddle that I have on hand. I'm not going to be speaking into the general experience that you might be facing as an owner of this paddle. I will just be speaking into the experience that I know. But let's first talk about what is broken. And a lot of people have seen this paddle, not this specific version, but the Control version, actually. The Control Fusion, I believe, was the paddle that beat Ben Johns in a recent singles tournament. It was Chris Hayworth, I believe, who was wielding the paddle, and that was the first time I saw people questioning if there would be a call against it. There was no call made, but this paddle has been, in early reviews, considered one of the heaviest hitting paddles out there, and I think that has been the biggest reason for whether or not it's broken. I know there's question about the material that's in the core, the SST core, whether or not that would be a reason for this banning. So when you look at a paddle, you think, why is this one considered broken when there's so many other hard-hitting paddles out there that aren't? So when I heard all this conversation, even though I hadn't planned on buying this paddle, I was just very curious for what is broken, what causes a paddle to get banned, and as someone who appreciates the technology, I felt like this was a reason that I had to get it. So if you're wondering why did I get this, it's because first, I'm financially irresponsible, and then secondly, if something is broken, I need to know from my perspective what that means. I'm not a pro. I'm probably about a 3-5 player, and I know a lot of you out there are as well. Even if you like to tell people you're higher or lower, it doesn't matter to me. All I'm saying is that for me, I wanted to see what is an amateur's perspective on a broken paddle. How does it affect my gameplay, and what is the line in which paddles are drawn? So the first thing I want to compliment them is counterintuitive to the narrative I've heard. I want to say that I really like this build quality. We had previously reviewed the Engage Pursuit MX, and my one issue I had with that was it did not feel solid all the way through the handle. I think they made steps in the right direction to cover up the exposed polymer, but there were still definitely some things that I would have improved about that build, as well as the edge guard that they use. On this paddle, we have an edgeless design, and there is kind of this covering over the edge that is visible and apparent, and as you can see, a little scuffed on mine in some areas, but overall it's withstood the games that I've put it through, and I haven't had any major issues with that. It's felt solid, and if anything updates in the future, I'm going to let you guys know for sure. But for me, I've really enjoyed the build quality. I've never owned a Gearbox paddle, and I know that they've been praised for their quality in the past, and they also have quality reviews as far as I know when it comes to return policies and all of that. So that is actually probably a pro, even though a lot of people might list that as something they'd see as a negative. But for my specific purpose, I'd say that that is something I'm really liking. And one thing I like to talk about is aesthetic. I don't think this is the best looking paddle in the world, but it's not bad looking. I like their logo on this side. The word pro is kind of gimmicky here, but for the most part, it's a pretty muted design, and I tend to like it, especially more than the other Gearbox paddles I've seen in the past. I'll compare it to a couple of the other paddles on the market really quick, just so you can kind of see what it looks like as far as size and comparison goes. This is my favorite, both aesthetic and just favorite all-around paddle up to this point, the Double Black Diamond by 6-0, specifically in this rainbow colorway. So you see this is a much thinner paddle, shape-wise. It's going to be that elongated shape rather than this hybrid shape. I wish that their, this is just kind of a side note, but I wish that their fusion paddles had more resembled a hybrid shape. That would have made it a little more interesting to me. Here's another hybrid shape paddle, the Prism Flash. in comparison. So you're getting pretty standard things. There is, of course, that thinner 14 millimeter body, but even with that, the edgeless just feels so much smaller at 14 millimeter. So that's kind of what the paddle looks like in comparison to some of the other popular paddles on the markets. I think it's a pretty good looking paddle. I wouldn't say buy it because of the looks, but I do appreciate that it doesn't look gimmicky or overly ridiculous colored or anything like that. It's just a solid looking, kind of muted design paddle. This is an overgrip as well. So let's talk about the thing that everyone wants to talk about. Let's talk about the power of the paddle. And this is a hard one to rate because I don't want to give anything a 10 because that indicates there's not much room for improvement, but really it felt pretty powerful for the games that I've played. I will say, one, I played in the cold, so I'm not making excuses. I'm just letting you guys know. I'm not going to make any excuses about anything on this channel. I play the way I play, and if that's good, it's good, and if it's bad, it's bad. But when I played in the cold, it felt a little slow at first, and I know some people have talked about a break-in process, and I think maybe that was part of it. But once I got a couple games in, I really noticed that the power was there. It felt like a lot. And so that's why I want to give it a 10. I'm not saying that there's not room for improvement with future paddle technology, but when you pick up a paddle and it feels different than other paddles, that there's a reason for that. And this really did feel a lot different power wise. I felt like it grabbed the ball really easily. And someone made note that you can kind of squish the core a little bit. So it might be something similar to what Engage is doing with their kind of bouncy core on the inside. But it really did make it feel like my overheads were getting put away pretty easily. They were easy to find the area that I wanted to go for, and I felt really, really comfortable doing them, when in most cases I am not great at overheads and I usually try to avoid them. So because of all this, I give the power a 10. It just made speed ups easy as well. Once I figured out serves, that was all going good. And so I really, really liked the power aspect of this paddle specifically. Next, we're going to talk about pop. And if you're a little confused about the difference between power and pop, I am going to be rating power as my backstrokes, my drives, my serves, my overheads, and pop is more the kind of power you would get at the line, doing a counter, doing some kind of dink, doing a reset, any of those kind of things. And for me, pop was one of the harder areas of this paddle. It has a lot of pop. I'd say probably an 8 or a 9, and it's not necessarily always predictable. We'll go into it a little more later on, but the pop mixed with not a great sweet spot, in my opinion, made this paddle a little hard at the line. I wouldn't say it was the hardest paddle I've used at all, but I have been using the Prism Flash a lot, the Pursuit, and mainly the Double Black Diamond, and they all just have excellent sweet spots. So it was a little bit different than my experiences with those paddles. So the pop made it just a little hard when doing a reset to think about the angle, because I had to think so much more specifically in order to make sure that that shot landed where I wanted it to. I do think, this is kind of leading to the end here, but I do think that this paddle is good enough that it's worth considering, even if that is an issue for you. I think that you are able to change your gameplay with this paddle easier than other ones I've used in the past to acclimate towards benefiting from that power and still being able to hold your own in these other areas. So I'd give, pop somewhere between 8 and 9. Control, I'd give it around the same as the Engage Pursuit, with a 7 rating. I don't think it's necessarily a control paddle, but I don't think it's necessarily bad at it either. You're able, one way or another, to make the shots you want to happen. And I think if you're able to do that, that's a good control paddle. I don't think that this paddle is necessarily making these shots effortless for you, but they're not impossible by any means. So this is something that I did actually like a lot more than I thought it would be. I thought this would be a lower number upon my initial games. So one thing I like to talk about that a lot of people don't talk about as much in those specific number videos is really how it feels to play with the paddle. Going back to a recent review I did, this paddle I love a lot, but one thing that can be a struggle is being able to feel the follow through of the ball while using it. And it's just not super responsive in that regard, where even though people don't love stiffer paddles, that's what I do like about the double black diamond is I really know and feel where the ball is going. For this paddle, it's kind of in the middle. I feel that it's plusher than some of the stiffer thermoform paddles that I've used in the past, but it definitely still feels like I can tell where the ball is going. I can feel the follow through. And even though it has that plush feeling, I'm still able to know generally what I'm doing with the ball. Remember again, this is just a tip. All paddle feeling is subjective, and even what you think of a paddle is subjective. So find a paddle that matches your play style. I know I've talked to a few people about this a little bit, but people will go for the most powerful paddle, and that becomes their play style. But if you're playing better with a control paddle or an all-court paddle, just note the things you like about it and try to find those kind of comments in reviews when you're looking at other paddles. So for me, I liked the way that it felt, but there were some difficulties, and we're going to go over those right now. For me, one thing that's been difficult really just since the beginning is I started with a hybrid paddle. I started with the Vatic Pro, and before that, just fiberglass paddles. And so I've switched to elongated paddles. I've used the Pursuit MX. I used the Pursuit before that, and the Legacy Pro even before that one. So I've used elongated, but for me, there's something about the balance that makes them a little slower at the line, especially when you're trying to determine which way to go with them in some situations. So I always think about what the balance feels like for those, and I felt like the balance was a little weird starting out with this one. I don't know if you've noticed, but I put some lead on them based on the Pickleball Effects recommendation, and I do feel that this has helped with this balance a little bit. But so the balance was not the worst, but it definitely took some getting used to. Another thing that I feel like people haven't commented on that was just maybe my specific case, but I did feel that the twist weight was lower than I was expecting with this one. I feel like when you're hitting it, there's a lot of twist, especially in these corners and top to the paddle. And that was something that I really didn't expect at all. I know that people said it wasn't the best twist weight and sweet spot, but it was not as good as I was expecting. It was a lot smaller than I was expecting. So it felt really, really powerful here, but then almost dead in some of these areas here. So it did require me holding the paddle, at least initially, a little more stiff than I would like, and then eventually, leading to this lead tape formation. The last thing, and this isn't a bad one, but this is one that does come with the territory, is that it hits long, obviously, because it has a lot of power. So that takes a little bit of reining in, and it hits lower than you would think, especially in your third shot drops. So for me, this one took a little bit of adjusting because I hit a lot into the net, and I think it was a mixture of me not expecting as much spin as it had, and then not expecting as much power as it had. So what I found was the best balance was just being able to add a lot of topspin towards those shots to ensure that they would drop where I wanted them to, and then being comfortable using the power even though it felt like these balls might go out. Oftentimes when I felt a ball would go out, as long as I added that top spin, it would still stay in. It was just an adjustment on the playing style in which I used. So once I got used to that adjustment, what became a difficult, or started as a difficulty, kind of became a pro. So I was really excited to see that be the case. Now, the last thing I want to mention, and this is a big one, is the price. The price of this paddle is kind of absurd. I know that a lot of Selkirk paddles lead into the $250 range, and I've always thought that that was really high for a paddle. Previous to this one, I think the most expensive paddle I've bought is the double black diamond at $180. And so when you're going into that $279 range, it really does feel like a lot for a paddle. I know we mentioned in the Engage, one of the benefits being that customer service and having that warranty. And I would say the same about Gearbox. It's made in America. It has a good warranty. It definitely plays well. So if these are things you value, and if you have the money to buy this paddle, I think it could be a really good investment for you. The main reason for this is that this paddle plays unlike any other paddle that I've played with, and I can't say that about a lot of paddles. I can't wholeheartedly recommend it though, because there's a lot of great paddles that will get you very good playthrough, very significant improvements on your game, and some of them, like the Vatic Prism Flash, are as low as $90. So for me, I just think look at what you're comfortable spending. And if you are comfortable spending, or you just want to try out something, or if you're okay with it maybe being banned, then this paddle is a good investment in that regard. I don't think it's for everyone. I really don't. But I do think it's a good paddle. For me, I'm going to try to make this my main paddle that I use. And I think that the power just feels different. And it's something that if you have the opportunity to experience, you should. That being said, I think this is a good video. I know someone said I say that being said too much, so sorry about that. But I think this is a good paddle. I think it's one I'm really excited for, and I'm excited to see how, banned or not banned, it affects pickleball paddle technology moving forward. So if there's any other videos that you would like to see, please leave in comments. If you have any comments on this paddle or any thoughts that I left out, please list those as well. I do not have a code for this paddle. I wish I did. And I'm hoping that at some point I can make more connections with this channel so that I can make this more affordable for myself. But it's something I love doing, something I love bringing to you guys, and I hope to see you guys in the next one soon. Have a good day. God bless.